I'm Luke from Leicester City Down Under. I'm joined by Craig at UTC IAD. How are you, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Up the cherries in all departments. Do you know what? Somebody turned round and said UTCID. It sounds like a sexually transmitted infection. So it's not. It's something that's been going on for years. Because everybody shouts up the cherries, and then in all departments, normally is responded. So yeah, it's unique, isn't it? It's different.
You heard it here from Craig. It's that's his channel. It's not a sexually transmitted disease. It's a Bournemouth fan channel. So just glad he cleared the air there. Thanks, mate.
That's all
How are
right,
you? All
mate.
right?
No problem. Yeah, all good, all good. Great to be on. Thanks for inviting me, mate.
No, thank you for joining me, mate. Craig, how you been, and how are you feeling so far in the season? Are you where you expected to be? Are you happy? Talk to me.
I think, personally, I think we should be on more points than we actually are. The Forest game, we had no recognised striker. Well, we did. Semenyo is more than capable of playing up front on his own. And in fact, sometimes I thought, well, maybe he would be the best scenario because we'll touch upon Evan Nielsen. He hasn't been particularly that hot in front of goal. He is a new signing, 40 million from Porto. A great move on paper from the looks of things. However, he struggled to adjust to life in the Premier League, but he did get his first goal against Southampton. I think my nan would have got her first goal against Southampton. We'll touch upon that as well, that game, because they weren't particularly very good. But the Forest game, I could completely understand, a 1-1 draw. The problem is if you take Semenyo out of the position where he normally is on that right wing, bombing down, he's strong, he's got great strength, and you put him up front, you kind of lose that down that right hand side, if that makes sense. But Evan Nielsen come in. Of course, we lost Dominic Solanke during the summer. Gutted about that, actually. A lot of people have said, well, Dominic Solanke, why have Spurs paid 65 million? It's more about what he does, um, dropping back, and he builds things up for Cliver. Built up. He had a great relationship with Phil Bill, and that's what he does. So it's not just all about scoring goals. He does create so much more. Um, but of course, we've done all right. We've got 8 points. We got 8 points, but really, we should have beaten Chelsea. We were all over them. We were much, much the better side. I can understand some Leicester fans' frustrations with regards to Enzo Maresca after that game, because I felt that what he didn't really, he adjusted some personnel in their side. And of course, Chelsea, because if you do spend 500 million on players and, kind of do lots of dodgy stuff, you will actually win, football matches because you've got that quality in depth. And that's how they beat us. The other reason why they beat us is because we couldn't actually hit the bloody target. We couldn't hit the barn door with a beach ball that game. So yeah, that one was disappointing. And let's touch upon the Everton game, because, in fact, this might surprise you, Luke. That was probably our worst performance of the season so far. For 87 minutes, we were absolute shite. We were absolute rubbish. Everton were 2-0 up. Everton aren't particularly a very good side. I don't know what it is. I think it's a lurgy of Goodison Park. So hopefully, well, we might not be playing there next year if they go down. But um, for some reason, we just play rubbish when we go up there. Um, but for the following 8 minutes, where we got our 3 goals, it was as if a switch had just been touched, and it was unbelievable. The transition from one style to what we actually did in that 8 minutes was unbelievable. And it shows we wouldn't get away with that against any other team. Everton are that poor that we got away with it. Newcastle, the 1-1 draw, we should have had 3 points there. Of course, Dongo Watara headed it down. Dan Burns' hand was closer to the ball than Dongo's was. So I don't know how VAR got that wrong. Liverpool, we've thrashed, and of course, most recently the 3-1 against Southampton. But I'm taking that with a pinch of salt because they're not very good. They are. Um, I To be honest, I'm not sure. Although it might sound weird, Luke, but they're l- they're a local club to us. We don't really hate them. Some fans hate them, but I don't really hate them, and actually quite like to see them in the Premier League. But are they going to stay up? They haven't got a hope in hell performing like they did. They have not got. Um, Honestly, mate, it was just absolute toilet, and it was just great to rip into Ryan Fraser after what he did to us during the COVID period. Of course, for anybody that doesn't know, COVID happens. We was on a fairly decent run. We'd drawn against Chelsea. We was narrowly beaten by eventual champions Liverpool. We actually went 1-0 up there, and then every other player decided, yeah, okay, we'll extend our contracts, apart from Ryan Fraser, who thought he was going to get a move to Arsenal, ended up at Newcastle, and then ended up with the manager that he let down. So, tough titties to him. But, mate, honestly, I think we should be on more points. Like I say, should have beaten Chelsea. So there's 3 points there. Should have beaten Newcastle. So really, we should probably be on 13 points at this point in time. But hey, I'm quite happy with where we are in the table. We would have taken this before the season had kicked off.
Awesome, Craig. Well, look, mate, like just to start off with, I agree. Like, I think Russell Martin's probably one of the first managers to get sacked. Playing that suicidal high line he does is scary, and you can play
Yeah,
all the possession you want. But like, yeah, do you know what I mean? It's like
yeah.
he's like a watered down Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah.
Just want to give a quick shout out, Doug. How are you, mate? Thank you for tuning in. And Jeff is in as well. How are you, Jeff? I don't think so. We've got a donkey in charge, but I'll get to that in a minute. Um, looks like Russell Martin will be soon. Craig Rimmers could be sacked on international break. I would not be surprised, mate,
Do you know
honestly.
what?
And
Actually, I'll have my say on that. I personally don't think, and I know this is going to be really controversial. I don't think that, let's say, Fabio Capello or Pep Guardiola, if they walked into Southampton, I do not think it would make the slightest bit of difference because they are that
really,
poor. They're that poor. So they might as well persist with Russell Martin. They won't, and they won't stay up. But hey, I tell you what, they should try and get Nathan Jones back from Charlton. He did a good job. He did a great job. He did.
fair
That'd
play.
just be bloody funny.
That would be funny. Look, let's talk about your manager Andoni Areola, the Spanish nipple. Keeping
Iriola,
out of
Iriola,
Areola.
Iriola.
Let's talk. Look, I'm going to get his name wrong. Semenyo, is it? I get
Oh, yeah, Semenyo. I think I've got a man
Semenyo.
crush on him. I think,
So
he is quality.
really good. So let's talk about that. So like Semenyo, that second goal for you guys that he scored, like proper physical, like beats his man.
Yeah.
Really, really good goal. I can definitely see what you mean. He could play that. That not everyone wants that false nine position. He could 100% play it.
Yes.
I definitely rate him. Now, what I want to talk to you is Solanke. Obviously, a huge loss and worth every penny. Just got his call up to England. Tell me, do you think your manager got the best out of him, and do you think that Evan Neeson will eventually you will get a tune out of him with your manager in due time because it is your record signing? Talk to me what you think, and if you think it's just a matter of betting into the Premier League. It's obviously a much difficult league compared to any other league. The pace,
Yeah.
the physicality, the time on the ball. What do you think?
Um, Starting off with Solanke, I was absolutely devastated when he left. I spoke to Alan Pardew on Talksport, and I said he's worth more than 65 million. I said he's just quality. It's not so much. Everybody goes, "Oh, his goal scoring record and things like that." And there was some Bournemouth fans that said, "Well, he's not going to get 10 goals in the Premier League." He has improved year on year on year on year. And a lot of that has to go down to, I think Gary O'Neill was probably the first manager who really got the very best out of Dominic Solanke. Now, there's a lot of Bournemouth fans that will say, "Oh, Gary O'Neill," I thought Gary O'Neill did a great job with a side that were, let's be fair, we weren't ready for the Premier League. We weren't ready for it, Luke, that season, but he managed to keep us up, and in the end, quite comfortably. The aforementioned Everton, of course, did help us because they were that shite, that they decided that they were going to. It was actually them getting beat that actually kept us in the Premier League and confirmed our place for the following season. Um, but Iriola brought him on so much. And like I say, is his dropping back. He's perfect for Spurs. He is absolutely perfect for Spurs. It's what Ange Postecoglou has actually done something fantastic by getting him in. I know it's I know it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for us, but I think Ange has actually worked out, right, okay, what we need is we need somebody to drop back into that hole and build things up, and we need to get goals from elsewhere, and that is what he does. He should have gone to the Euros instead of Ivan Toney. I stand by that. um, I think he's a massive loss. Evan Nielsen, as you mentioned, has come in. Now, he's a strong lad. He's a strong lad. He's quick, but he didn't. He's only just found his shooting boots. And against Chelsea, we had a penalty. Now, the penalty was well placed. I don't have a problem with where he actually, you know, directed the penalty. It was just the strength of it. And, I spoke to Matt Letizia about this before the Southampton game. It was his run up. It was his whole. He didn't look confident. He looked like he knew he was going to miss it. And then that just kept knocking him down and down and down and down. So, yeah, I think Evan Nielsen still has a lot to learn. He needs to, I think he's strong enough to play in the Premier League. I think that, he's quick enough. He's got the ability and the attributes. I think he still needs to adapt quite quickly. Iriola will get him there, but my concern is, have we really got that time? Because Bill Foley's, I'm happy with where we are at the moment, to be honest, Luke. But I don't think Bill Foley will be. Whereas, are we ready for European football? No, not really. We haven't got the strength in depth that we need for that. But that's what Bill Foley is targeting. I can 100%, I have no doubts in my mind that is what he's targeting. So Evan Nielsen does need to hit the ground running. We don't probably have time based on what Bill Foley wants to do. But I think he'll get there. I think he'll get there. And of course, the gift that is Southampton have helped him get his first goal. So hopefully, confidence will breed from that. As long as he doesn't just score against Southampton because they are that shit.
Just gonna give the comments real quick. How you going, Kate?
Hello,
Thank you
Kate.
for tuning
You're
in.
right.
You're right. Doug and Hag will be. They are fucking imploding. They
Do you
are
know?
imploding.
Do you know what? I want to see when we've got Man United. Let's have a look. Oh no, that's
Everyone
last
fancies
year when we.
themselves against United at the moment.
That's
That's
when
the
we
gift
beat
on
them
the gifts I'm
3-0.
giving.
Oh crikey! Do you know what? I hope that we have got. I don't think we have got them soon, which is a real shame.
I think we do, and I wouldn't be surprised. It would be so typical Leicester for that to be our first 3 points against them. Yeah, give the knee, you idiots.
They are
Just,
rubbish. They are
just,
rubbish, mate.
um, just to quickly touch on what you said before we move on, mate, because I think you're bang on, by the way, about what you said about Ange Postecoglou. I think that the
Yeah.
high pressing team, they're one of the first rated for turn the ball over and scoring from that. that is Solanke all over, and it completely
Yes.
fits like a glove. And you're spot on to bring that up, by the way. And you guys, if your mid press are a very good side as well under the Iriola. I'm not going to say his name again. I keep thinking of nipples every time I say his name. But he, you're really bang on to bring that up, and I think that he's worth every penny, and I think he's
Yeah.
a great addition to that side. And it is a shame, and it sucks when you lose players of that caliber. And what's more criminal is how much they paid for James Maddison, in my opinion. With all due respect, if
Yes.
Jack Grealish is worth 100 million, then James Maddison's fucking worth at least 80. And the fact that
Yes.
he didn't get into the England side as well is a whole other rant, but I won't get into that right now. So I'm his agent, by the way. I'm his lawyer, agent, everything. Mate, I just want to quickly just get a rant out the way before we get into my starting 11. With all due respect to you, because you're here in front of me, would be saying that this is a game that we need to get 3 points in, and a game that I fancy getting 3 points. Not with Steve Cooper in charge. There's a few managers that I fancy getting sacked. It might be O'Neill, Deitch, definitely Russell Martin, and I hope after we lose this game, yes, I'm going for a loss. I hope it's Cooper. Like I said many times before, he's an orc that could eat an apple for a tennis racket. He is not cut out for Premier League football, and I am just like the writing's on the wall for me. I don't want to wait for 10 games. I think if we lose this game before the international break, good, get him gone, and let's get someone in that can actually build upon what we did last season, because he just sets up to hold on for a point.
I
That's just not.
question that though, Luke.
There's no.
I think he did a good job at Nottingham Forest because of their turnover of players. That was a ridiculous scenario that he had at Forest. It was as if, wow, uh, Marinakis bought in, I think it was about 20, 25 players the first season, and then bought in, just as many the second season. Now, with that turnover of players, he's got to learn what his best team is. I'd be damned if he did. What he has
Look,
got at Leicester is he's got a lot more stable side. So it would be interesting to see over a period of time, and if he's given that, if he can actually mold something, create something with a team which is more fixed rather than Nottingham Forest, which is a basket case. Let's be fair. Um,
Let me strongly counter that. I
go
understand
on.
what you're saying, but then again, look at like for like our last manager. Okay, we talk about a heap of players coming in for
Mm,
Forest. Now look how much Chelsea we've already just talked about. They got even more players. Okay, and Enzo
yeah.
Maresca is getting a massive tune out of them compared to what Pochettino did because he plays to a system. We don't know what Steve Cooper's system is. I think you're going to be heavily surprised if you compare. We haven't changed all that much, but if
Mm,
you compare after this weekend, our game, compared to when you played us last in the cup. Granted that we obviously played quite a few rotated players to a certain extent. You're going to be like, wow, you guys looked much better last time, which is
yeah.
what really depresses me because I think it's a complete regression. I understand what you're saying, but like I'm telling you, mate, like we look god awful. Um,
I don't want to depress you, Luke, even more. We have got a fantastic record against Steve Cooper. That is one thing that we do have. Even when he was 3-0 up against us, we seem to have got a result. So, yeah, to be honest, Steve Cooper hasn't got a great record against us. Um, the one thing that I would say though is I think he is a decent manager. I think he is a decent manager. Is he what Leicester is needing? Um, that's a bigger question, and whether or not he can adapt, because Iriola definitely can. If Leicester play in a certain way and play a certain style and dictate the game, Iriola can adapt to that. We will not probably come out play that high pressing style, which I know from speaking to Kate, that didn't really sit very well with Cooper. Um, if he decides to play a different style, I think that Iriola will counteract that. So I do get your I do get your point, and I do get your point about Enzo Maresca as well, because Enzo, it might sound ridiculous, because I personally think you should have walked the championship last year. You should be you should have finished on more than the record, which is 106 points, which was achieved by Reading in 2006. You should have beaten that record, considering the start. And he just let it slip towards the end of the season. But he has got so much quality at Chelsea. Like I say, the football he played wasn't particularly very good against us. But what he did do is he did have strength in depth. And if we had been able to hit a barn door with a beach ball, we would have won that game 100%. So, yeah, I do get your point with Steve Cooper. I do get your point with Steve Cooper. I can't see him being sacked after this match. I think he'll be given a little bit more time by top.
I think so, unfortunately, as well. I know what you. I
Sorry
know.
to disappoint you, Luke.
Oh mate, I so badly want him gone. I don't hate the
Yeah.
bloke personally, but as our manager, I just think just fucking do one, you ugly bastard. But anyways, just just put up a comment here, and I'm going to get into the 11. I think past records against Cooper don't really count, mainly because he's not played this system with anyone else but us.
Mhm.
Well, that's the thing.
Fair-
Cooper came out and said, I watched all the games last season. I think I was well going to what you was, which is bullshit about Cooper, by the way. Like, otherwise you'd play how we played last season, which I'm about to bring up in my 11. But
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. I think what happened was as well a lot in the championship. Yeah, definitely we did drop towards the end. It was a little bit of a squeaky bum time for a period. But I
Yeah.
think what was happening was everyone just started parking the bus and playing against us like we were Man City. Everyone was parking,
Yeah.
playing a low block. And that was part of the excitement of moving into the Premier League, because teams like Southampton, who don't park the bus and try playing possession, they got absolutely battered by us both games last season.
Yes.
So we're
Yeah.
thinking, oh, that's what was part of the excitement for me as a Leicester fan of what was going to happen with Maresco going into the Premier League. But that's not to be. Now we've got an
Yeah.
Orc in charge straight from Isengard. So, Craig, I'm
He
going
looks like
to.
something from Skyrim, doesn't he? Have you ever
Yeah, he
played
does.
that? Yeah,
Yeah.
if you all you have to do is spend 5 minutes on Skyrim, and you will find Steve Cooper.
Yeah. And you'll find Fark the blacksmith as well in the same town. Yeah. All right, guys. If I was manager, this is the 11 I would go with. And I think we're going to have, for what it's worth, just full disclosure, I think we're going to have no changes from the last game that we had. But if it was me, this is what I would do. Now, I would love us to go back to a back three. I would love to have a Cole as your left-sided centre back. And I would love to have Fast in the middle, obviously only for now because Yannick is still not fit, I believe, because of his injury. And having him to build upon the back. And then, so we've got Fast, and then we've got Justin on the right-hand side, who's been left totally exposed. Now, as you can see in the banner, free Ricardo Pereira. The fact that he hasn't got a minute of Premier League football is criminal, and again, a sackable offence to that stupid orc that's in charge right now. So Ricardo Pereira, giving that support that Winks is sorely needing in that double pivot. He's been isolated and targeted big time, and people have been saying, he hasn't been that great. I just think it's the system that we've been forced to play, and you don't get the most out of Harry Winks. Now, for Tawu on the right wing, someone that you're obviously unfortunately well familiar with, an absolute gem of a signing. He's been barely featuring this season, and again, has not been really up to it because of, again, the system. Boyanote, now this is one player that's playing so well for us on loan from Brighton that I would not be surprised if they recalled him in January, mate. He's looking like a proper 40 million plus signing in the future. He's very good. And he's basically, in my opinion, the replacement. Now, I'm not saying like for like replacement or he's better or anything like that, but in terms of ball progression and carrying the ball up the pitch and being able to turn a drive, we've lost that with Keenan Dewsbury Hall big time. And I think Boyanote is, the best, for that role that we have. And I think that's sorely needed. Ndidi, now you could make an argument, in my opinion, as that box crashing high 8, which I want to see a box midfield again. Ndidi is your high pressing 8. You could make the same argument for Skip to go on there. So Skip's a brilliant rotation option, as is Bilal Al-Kunis, but I don't think he's ready yet. Mavididi, obviously, in the left, had a quiet game. Now, one thing I just want to point out right now is that the reason why I think our wingers have not been effective this season in this system is because we don't have a box midfield anymore. We're playing with a double pivot and the 10, and I just think that playing the 4-2-3-1, I think we do not get the best out of our wingers under the system, and I think they're getting quite isolated, and it's quite a shame. So we were looking lethal with our wingers last season. It's something that's been sorely missed. And obviously, the GOAT, Everyone loves Jamie Vardy, professional shithouser. He's probably going to be starting up front. That's my starting 11 that I would like to see. But to be honest with you, I think that it's just going to be the same. Maybe Jordan Ayew the right, but that's who I've got. Craig, do you want me to pull up your starting 11 against Southampton?
I've
Have you
actually
got it
got it
there?
here. Yeah, I've got it here.
Yep.
So we started with Kepa in goal. On the left-hand side, Milos Kerkez, Senesi and Zabani in the centre, Adam Smith on the right-hand side. The defensive midfielders was Lewis Cook and Ryan Christie. You had Semenyo on the right-hand side, Dongo on the left, and Marcus Tavernier in the centre with Evan Nelson up front. Now, for this game, Adam Smith, I don't think he had the greatest of games, in all honesty. Against Saints, I think he was a little bit lackluster. I think what we could do with is a little bit of pace. And I reckon on that right hand side, we will bring in Julian Arejo, who is a player that I think Iriola has bought in primarily to replace Adam Smith. Adam Smith, of course, was promoted with us to the Premier League back in 2015, all that time ago. He's a good player, and actually Iriola's got more out of him because under Gary O'Neill, there was a game against Brighton, and Matoma had Adam Smith in his pocket. And the reason being was Adam Smith was getting too close to Matoma. Matoma was turning him and beating him every single time. So what Adam Smith will do is he'll drop back a little bit deeper and then time when he's going to make that challenge. So I think this game is probably perfect for Julian Arejo, Mexican international. Looks a very, very exciting player. So I would put him in instead of Adam Smith. Marcus Tavernier wasn't great against Saints, in my honest opinion. He has been good at times this season. He's a quality player. But I think that this is a game for Justin Kluivert. Kluivert is excellent. In fact, he's got more goals in the Premier League than his dad did. So, yeah, I personally think Kluivert probably through the middle. But our danger men, you have to say, or our danger man, you have to say, is Antoine Semenyo. There is no surprise that Spurs, of course, Ange looks like he might raid us again. And also Liverpool are meant to be after him. Both of them can fuck off because I don't want him to go anywhere. I absolutely love Anton Semenyo. Honestly, from meeting him, he's such a down to earth guy. He's determined, he's passionate about this football club. Um, I think that he has got a great future in the game. And yeah, Semenyo. To be honest, I talk about him so much. Matt on the channel said you got a bit of a man crush on Semenyo, and I was like, yeah. Do you know what? I'm going to say it. Yeah, I do. I think the man is just a quality player. In fact, when he signed from Bristol City, I turned round and I said, I'm not sure. He blows a bit hot and cold. I don't feel that he is somebody who is consistent and out and out. And I spoke to Mark McAdam. He agreed with me. Semenyo's been consistent every single game for us in the fact that he's been absolutely fucking immense. He has been absolutely immense. He's the danger man. He is the person who will put balls into Evan Nielsen. It's just as long as Evan Nielsen can actually hit a barn door with a beach ball now, which is going to be the determining factor.
That he's the one player. Shout out to Locks, by the way. Thank you for tuning in, mate. Yes, free Ricardo. Semenyo does scare me as well. If he's playing on that right wing and he's
Yeah.
coming up against Victor Christensen, I think he's going to absolutely rinse him.
Mhm.
I would much prefer have JJ on that side to man him and mark him, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's one matchup to watch out for, mate. I think Victor
Yeah.
Christensen, the little Viking that looks about 45 at 22 or something, is probably not going to be probably a favorable matchup for you, to be honest.
Yeah.
Just going to quickly pull up a comment here before we wrap this up. Oswin, thank you for commenting, mate. I don't agree with this, but I appreciate your input. Not playing Ricardo is not sackable. He's been met at best against League Two sides in a row. Okay, let me ask you this, mate. Ask yourself all the players that were amazing last season. Ricardo Pereira was my player of the season. He played a high pressing 8 on
Yeah.
both sides, both fullback on both sides, double pivot, inverting fullback. Very, very difficult position. Played all of them and played them well. Completely integral. Now that we've got that out of the way, let me ask you this: how good was Fatawi last season? Very, very good. Has he been met this season? Was Winks really good last season? Has he been met? Yes, he has. Why? Because of the system we're playing. So I'm sorry, mate, but I respectfully, strongly disagree with what you just said. So it's not his fault. Now, one last comment. Ricardo had a great match versus Tranmere, actually Austrian, and he didn't get a kick in the league after. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Locks. There's my agent and security guard in the comments, mate. I'm gonna have to make you a mod after that. Just before we move on to a score prediction, Craig, do you think Billing looks a little bit like an alpaca?
Have you seen the size of him?
He's
I've
a
seen him in real life. He is, I'm 6 foot. Well, probably just a little bit shorter than 6 foot. So I always class myself as quite tall. But Billing is like a tower. And yeah, I can see why you think that because of the hairstyle. He's a very. Do you know what, Phil Billing? I've got so much time for Phil Billing, especially after what he did. I know I've met him on a couple of occasions, and he is a very reserved gentleman. He's not one of those that you would say is your typical out and out footballers, who is really he seems quite shy and introvert. He seems to be within himself. However, how he reacted that day when Tom Lockyer went down, I tell you what, he was first class. Honestly, he's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy. Does he look like an alpaca? Yeah, I can see why you
Yeah. Is he injured at the minute? Hopefully, he doesn't come on and score and start spitting at people at the King Power after he hears this. Maybe.
Do you know
I'm just
what? He
joking.
he he actually scored. He actually scored the last time we played at Dean Court, and that game he was shocking. He was shockingly shit all game, and he's a confidence player, and you could tell. Oh, Phil Billings not at the race to say we need to get him off, bring somebody else on. He scored and then just turned into some sort of beast, and I thought that is Phil Billing all over. He is one of these players that when he lacks confidence, it's just jeez, no. And then all of a sudden, it's like the spark has been lit. Bosh, he's there. Alpaca versus Bournemouth. That is definitely somebody's been watching too much Skyrim.
Yeah, that's the comment of the match. The game
It is.
stream. Sorry.
It is.
I'm just kidding, mate. Thank you heaps for joining, Craig. Before I let you
That's
go,
all
mate,
right.
give us your score prediction.
I'm going to go for a Bournemouth. I'm not going to bet against my own team. I'm going to go for a Bournemouth 2-1 win.
I'm going to do this. I think we're going to go 1-0 up, and then I think we're going to lose to you guys. And I think it's going to be Leicester 1, Bournemouth 2. And then I'm going to be coming on post match to heavily rant about how I want Steve Cooper out. Craig, if there's anyone from my channel watching this, please go over and ahead and subscribe to his sexually transmittable disease channel. Up the cherries in all departments. He's been a great guest. It's good to have you on. As you can see, we're co-streaming.
Thank you so much.
Please like, comment, all that good stuff, and have a good weekend. And best of luck to you in the rest of the season, Craig.
Yeah, and likewise, I really want to see Leicester stay up, and I think you will. I think you're more than capable. From what you're saying, though, Steve Cooper needs to do one if that's going to be the case.
Did I make that obvious? Did I?
Yeah, you did make it obvious, to be honest.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend, and don't take anything I take too seriously. It's all banter. Have a good weekend.